Are your plants struggling with dry, compacted soil? Imagine a simple household secret that could transform your garden. In this video I reveal my soil sponge method, showing you how common materials like cardboard and newspaper can revolutionize your soil structure and keep your plants thriving. You water your garden faithfully, yet within hours the soil surface is bone dry again. You dig down just a few inches and find compacted hydrophobic soil that sheds water like a raincoat instead of absorbing it like a thirsty plant needs. Meanwhile, you're hauling endless watering cans or running hoses for what feels like hours, watching precious water run off the surface or sink straight through sandy soil without ever being available to your plants when they need it most. This frustrating cycle isn't just wasting your time and water, it's fundamentally limiting what your garden can achieve. But what if I told you that the solution to this problem is probably sitting in your recycling bin right now? I'm talking about creating what I call a soil sponge, a hidden layer within your garden beds that acts like a reservoir, holding moisture exactly where plant roots can access it while simultaneously improving soil structure, encouraging beneficial microbial activity, and gradually releasing nutrients as it decomposes. This isn't some trendy gardening hack that sounds good in theory, but fails in practice. This is a time-tested technique I've refined over years of experimentation, and today I'm going to show you exactly how it works using two materials you almost certainly have on hand: cardboard and newspaper. Let's address the elephant in the room immediately because I know some of you are thinking it. Yes, putting cardboard and newspaper in your garden is not only safe but incredibly beneficial, despite persistent myths suggesting otherwise. Modern newspapers use soy-based inks that are completely non-toxic, and the glossy inserts you're worried about can simply be removed and recycled elsewhere. Cardboard, particularly the plain brown corrugated kind, is essentially just compressed wood fiber held together with a tiny amount of cornstarch-based adhesive. Both materials are carbon-rich organic matter that soil organisms will eagerly consume and transform into humus, the stable organic component that gives healthy soil its structure and fertility. When I prepare cardboard for the garden, I'm looking for plain corrugated boxes without excessive tape, staples, or plastic windows. Amazon boxes are perfect, as are produce boxes from the grocery store. I remove any tape and labels, then I do something crucial that many gardeners skip. I thoroughly soak the cardboard in water for at least 30 minutes before laying it down. This pre-soaking serves multiple purposes. It makes the cardboard pliable and easy to work with, conforming to the contours of your bed rather than leaving gaps. It ensures the material is already moisture saturated when it goes into the ground, jump-starting its role as a water reservoir. Most importantly, it initiates the decomposition process immediately by allowing water to penetrate the fibers and making them accessible to soil microorganisms. Newspaper preparation follows a similar philosophy but with important differences that affect its performance in the soil sponge role. I use full newspaper sheets, not shredded paper, because maintaining larger pieces creates better structure and slows decomposition to an ideal rate. The key with newspaper is creating thick layers, typically 8 to 10 sheets stacked together, because individual sheets decompose too quickly to provide sustained benefits. I also soak newspaper thoroughly, but I find it absorbs water even more readily than cardboard, becoming almost papier-mâché-like in consistency. This ultra-absorbent quality is actually one of newspaper's greatest strengths as a soil sponge material, though as we'll see, it comes with certain trade-offs compared to cardboard. The magic of the soil sponge isn't just about the materials themselves but about how you integrate them into your soil profile at the optimal depth for maximum benefit. I've experimented with various placement depths over the years, and I've found that positioning your sponge layer approximately 4 to 6 inches below the soil surface delivers the best results for most garden situations. This depth puts the material right in the root zone where water absorption matters most, while still having enough soil above it to support direct seeding and transplanting without interference. The layering process begins with excavating your bed to that 4 to 6 inch depth. If you're working with an existing bed, you're essentially creating a trench or removing the top layer entirely, setting that soil aside to replace later. If this is a new bed, you're building up layers from the bottom. Once you reach the appropriate depth, lay down your pre-soaked cardboard or newspaper directly on the exposed soil surface. With cardboard, I overlap pieces by at least 6 inches to prevent any gaps where water could channel through without being absorbed. The corrugated structure of cardboard creates tiny air pockets that enhance both water retention and aeration, giving it a three-dimensional quality that newspaper lacks. For newspaper, remember those 8 to 10 sheet stacks I mentioned? I lay them down in a shingled pattern, again overlapping generously. One technique I've developed is to intentionally wrinkle newspaper slightly as I lay it down rather than smoothing it completely flat. These wrinkles create micro-topography that prevents the sheets from matting together into an impermeable barrier, maintaining the water-absorbing capacity we're trying to create. Once your sponge layer is positioned, the next step is crucial for accelerating the integration of this material into your living soil system. I sprinkle a generous layer of finished compost or actively working compost directly onto the cardboard or newspaper before replacing the topsoil. This compost inoculation introduces massive populations of decomposer organisms that immediately begin colonizing the paper materials, speeding up the breakdown process, and ensuring that your soil sponge starts functioning quickly rather than sitting inert for months. Now let me share some critical mistakes to avoid because I've made every one of them in my learning process. Never use cardboard or newspaper that's been exposed to oils, chemicals, or food waste beyond simple organic matter. Pizza boxes with grease stains should go in your regular compost pile, not your soil sponge, because those oils can create hydrophobic pockets that defeat the entire purpose. Don't skip the soaking step thinking you'll save time. Dry paper materials will actually wick moisture away from the surrounding soil initially, exactly the opposite of what we want, and resist the temptation to use thick stacks of cardboard thinking more is better. A single layer of corrugated cardboard is actually ideal, because multiple layers can take so long to decompose that they temporarily create a barrier rather than a sponge. To truly understand how cardboard and newspaper perform as soil sponges, I've set up 2 identical experimental plots in my garden where we can observe their effects side by side over time. Each plot is 4 feet by 4 feet, and I've prepared them simultaneously using identical soil, identical depths, and identical watering schedules. The only variable is the sponge material itself. Plot A uses corrugated cardboard, and Plot B uses 10-sheet newspaper stacks. Both materials were soaked for 45 minutes before installation. Both received the same compost inoculation, and both were covered with 4 inches of the same topsoil mix. The immediate observations after installation are fascinating and tell us a lot about how these materials will perform long-term. When I water both plots with exactly 1 gallon of water distributed evenly across the surface, the drainage patterns reveal important differences. The cardboard plot absorbs water steadily and relatively quickly, with the corrugated structure apparently creating pathways for water to move down into the sponge layer where it's retained. I can actually feel the difference when I dig my finger down into the soil. There's a distinct sponginess at the 4-inch depth where the cardboard resides, and the soil surrounding it feels uniformly moist. The newspaper plot absorbs water even more rapidly initially. Almost too rapidly, with the paper becoming completely saturated and creating what feels almost like a gel layer at that 4-inch depth. Over the coming months, I predict we'll see some diverging results that will help you decide which material suits your specific garden conditions. The cardboard sponge will likely maintain its structural integrity longer, continuing to hold water in that 3-dimensional way for possibly an entire growing season before fully decomposing. This makes it ideal for perennial beds or situations where you want sustained, consistent moisture retention without needing to reinstall the sponge layer every year. The newspaper sponge will probably decompose more quickly, potentially within a single season, especially in warm, biologically active soil. This faster breakdown means you'll need to refresh newspaper layers more frequently, but it also means those nutrients locked in the paper fibers will be released and available to plants sooner. For annual vegetable beds where you're digging and amending each season anyway, newspaper's faster cycle might actually be advantageous. Creating a soil sponge is a powerful technique, but it's even more effective when integrated into a comprehensive soil health strategy. Your watering approach should adapt to take advantage of the moisture reservoir you've created beneath the surface. Instead of frequent shallow watering that never penetrates to the sponge layer, shift to less frequent but deeper watering sessions that fully saturate both the topsoil and the sponge layer beneath it. I've found that watering until I see moisture beginning to pool on the surface, then letting it soak in completely, then repeating once more, gives the best results. The beauty of the soil sponge method is how it complements other organic amendments you're probably already using. Top dressing with compost continues to feed beneficial organisms that are actively decomposing your sponge layer below. Mulching the surface with wood chips or straw works synergistically with the subsurface sponge, creating a two-layer moisture management system where the mulch reduces evaporation from the surface while the sponge holds reserves below. If you're adding amendments like kelp meal, rock dust, or other mineral supplements, the consistent moisture provided by your sponge layer helps keep those nutrients in solution and available to plants rather than locked up in dry soil where roots can't access them. I want to challenge you to start your own soil sponge experiment this week. You don't need to convert your entire garden at once. Choose one bed, or even just a section of a bed, and install either cardboard or newspaper using the techniques I've shared. Document what you observe over the coming weeks and months. How does moisture retention compare to adjacent areas without a sponge layer? Do you notice differences in plant vigor? How long does your chosen material remain identifiable in the soil before fully decomposing? Share your results, your questions, and your discoveries with our community because every garden is unique, and your observations might reveal insights that help all of us grow better. If you found this deep dive into soil sponge techniques valuable, please subscribe to the Living Soil Lab where we explore practical, science-based methods for building genuinely living soil that supports abundant, resilient gardens. Hit that subscribe button. Share this video with fellow gardeners who are tired of watching water and money run straight through their soil, and let's continue uncovering the simple but powerful techniques that transform ordinary gardens into thriving ecosystems. Together, we're not just learning to garden better, we're becoming true soil stewards who understand that healthy plants start with healthy, well-structured, moisture-retentive soil.